So this morning I was looking through Reddit, which was probably not a great idea, but here we are anyway, and found a thread about how some leftist men can often be worse than right-leaning men. Now I've already done a video on this, see previous video, but today I want to talk about what does it actually look like to not be sexist? Because something I could see some maybe more inexperienced or maybe more sheltered men be like, okay, well, if both right leaning and left leaning men, then like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I'm saying all the right things. I'm saying, the patriarchy's real and it sucks. No, like, what am I doing wrong? Which I think, up to a point's actually a fair question. And to be fair, a lot of the stuff you see online, I think there are a lot of feminists that just have had too many bad experiences with men and basically don't want to ever. Fuck, how do I put this? They don't want. They can't imagine men passing the test. They can't. They've been so burned so many times they can't see men actually treating them as equals, but they won't come out and say that. Or sometimes they do. Like sometimes they are just man hating, and I stay away from those feminist areas. I don't think they're gonna achieve anything. Like it's okay if you're like, I've had too many bad experiences, I'm gonna not date and try to keep most of my friends female. That's a personal choice. Anyway, without further ado, so here's what it looks like. So I have actually a couple male friends and have had a couple male friends that do actually truly treat me as an equal. And here's what it looks like. It looks like that if I go and see him talk with his male friends and then talk to me, it's basically the same. The topics might be different, but it's basically the same. They do not assume that I'm interested in different topics. But most importantly, they don't take this different, holier than thou, or know it all stance. The thing I notice, especially with a lot of leftist men, is that when they're talking to other men, they kind of treat them a little more as on their level. Now, sometimes they'll still have this know it all or this holier than thou because they're just kind of narcissists, but it's more pronounced with women. And I think a lot of these still sexist leftist men we're complaining about have not let go of this idea internally. Like, I think if they really, really dig deep and got the therapy they so desperately need, I think they would find they have not let go of this idea that women do not exist to validate them. And I think this is it. And I think so much of why men can be so progressive is because they have, like anything, they have biases. They haven't. Now, we all have biases. I'm not giving them shit for having implicit biases. That's a really toxic way of talking. It becomes witch hunting. Okay. What I'm specifically talking about is because you can have implicit biases that don't affect your actions. Like, I know for a fact I have some implicit biases but I make a point to be like, no, no, we're not actually acting on that. The men that I'm talking about, I think, do not have the self-awareness to really step in and say, you know what? Because I think, and I realize these men are not watching this video. These men that have these biases, they're not going to really. So I'm almost more talking to other women to know what red flags to look for, okay? So are they really willing to accept, like fully accept, that women, one, can vary and that we do not exist to validate you? We do not have a greater responsibility to validate your emotions, that we can be interested in many different things, that we should not have to be way better in something to be considered an acceptable level. This is something else I've seen, particularly working in tech. There's a lot of progressive men that still do not want to accept the fact that for a woman to be in the space, she still needs to be far better than a man to be considered at the same level. These are my standards. Hopefully, this starts a larger conversation, probably amongst women and amongst men that already get it. I have no delusion that a lot of these leftist men, your Hassan Piker, whatever the fuck you say his name, I don't say that to insult his name and his heritage. I say that to insult him as a person. They're not going to watch this video. They don't care. Quite frankly, I think for leftism in the United States to actually get anywhere, we need to tell a lot of these men to take a fucking hike. Otherwise, when we defeat the MAGA, whatever the fuck that looks like, and the leftists take over, I think a lot of us women, particularly women who have like something else, quote unquote, wrong with us, like if you're an autistic woman or a black woman or something of the like, we're not going to be much better off than we were under MAGA. Except we might have a few more rights, but we're still going to ultimately be secondary citizens.